If you've been running low on energy, if you feel like just things get to you so much more, and if you feel like you're like running out of time, and like things haven't been right with your health, like with like mental, physical, emotional health for a long time, I got some good news for you, my friend. And the news are that this has a name. This is the whole area of science that I've been studying about, called the allostatic load. I've been studying this in this course that I'm doing called Traumatic Stress Studies, and I'm fascinated by studying traumatic stress because I've been through trauma myself. I've been through rape as a child. I've been through cancer. I've been through all sorts of nasty things. And by the way, if you don't know me, my name is Joe Bakhmoutski. I'm the founder of Power to Be Happy. That's my podcast. And I wrote a book, Finding Hope in Times of Uncertainty, a guide to thriving in the challenging world of today. And this is a book about my journey of finding hope in dealing with cancer and finding my own kind of path in life beyond that. And I think for me, the journey to uncovering who I am and the journey to studying stress and talking to now thousands of people who've been through trauma, coming across this concept of allostatic load has just changed my entire perspective. Because allostatic load is really what happens to, it's the load essentially that we carry that comes with the chronic stress that we carry, the burden that we carry that comes with chronic stress and the impact of trauma that affects virtually all the systems that we have in our body, like our brain, how we produce hormones, like every single system of our body gets out of whack. And so we carry this load, right? Like everything becomes kind of out of tune, right? If it's like as if you're playing a guitar and the guitar is out of tune. Like you're not going to be able to really play it all that well until you tune it up, right? And this load is like a real scientific phenomenon. There's all these markers that we can carry for people, particularly who've been impacted by trauma, who like are living with chronic stress, how things essentially in our body go out of tune. And I really believe it's such a relief, my friend. What a relief. And you're probably thinking, Joe, why is that relief? Like it's crazy, right? It should be bad news. But the good news is that this has a name, that this is a part of how we are, and that we also can deal with it. The dealing with trauma, the dealing with the impact of stress is directly related to well-being, to our mental health, and just how we feel about ourselves and the world around us. That healing from trauma provides a direct pathway towards better health, right? And I don't think I really ever understood this at such a deep level as I do now. For most of my life, I feel like I just didn't pay much attention to things that happened. Like going through rape as a child, not being able to have sex for so many years of my life, being petrified of relationships. Something I could go on. I mean, all the awful things that I had to live with, I kind of didn't pay them any attention because I thought that's how life is. I thought that's just how life is. You just have to kind of get on with life and you keep going. And I didn't understand the impact it had on my health, on, putting on weight, on feeling exhausted, on just all the panic attacks that I had to live with. Feeling depressed, all of this stuff. I didn't realize that there was a possibility of healing from trauma. So today I want to speak to the possibility of healing from trauma, my friend. I want to share some specific ideas with you that I really hope, I hope they're going to serve you and give you that sense of hope, give you that sense of possibility that I know I didn't have for most of my life. And I didn't even realize that healing was a thing and the impact it could have on every single area of my life, and how we are able to roll back the impact, or at least some of the impact, on our health, on our wellness, on our well-being. Like words that I kind of even find annoying because everyone talks about it as if it's so easy. And yet for people like you and me who've been touched by trauma, for us, what we really need to do, first and foremost, is look towards healing from trauma, dealing with the impact of the stress on our life. And I really can't believe that at its core, in our daily life, healing from trauma comes down to doing these 4 things. I'm going to share because this is what's helped me. And from speaking with thousands of people on my podcast, in support groups, online, in person, in hospitals, I really feel like the first thing that is so vital that nobody talks about is a sense of compassion. Compassion for yourself, for what you have been through, because so often we just don't pay attention to what you've been through, the things you have lived through. It just kind of becomes something we push away because we don't want to think about it. It's painful, it's hurtful, and maybe you don't even know kind of what it is, right? Because it's just got so just closed off by other things that may have happened. And that's okay. We don't have to know a full story and exactly what happened for a time. But I think it's so vital to acknowledge, if you feel deep inside, like I have, that you've been through things, like you faced like some challenges in your life, is to say, you know what? I've been through a lot. And, that's changed my life in so many ways. And I deserve some credit for the fact that I'm here. The fact that I kept going. The fact that I'm just trying to do my best every single day. I'm trying. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's just hard to get through the day, but I'm here. I'm trying. I'm not going to be hard on myself, because I've had to live with all of these challenges. So I deserve to take things one day at a time. Having a conversation of compassion, a compassionate conversation with yourself, is vital, because it means that you are acknowledging the impact of struggle and strife on your life. We're not ignoring it, we're not minimizing it. Doesn't mean that we have to feel like You have to feel like a victim. But it means that you give yourself grace for the things that you've been through, and that you're not being hard on yourself right now. That you're saying, you know what? I'm doing good. Despite all the craziness that have happened, despite all the, difficult things that I have to put up with today, and yet I'm here. I'm doing good. I'm on my way. I deserve to feel good about myself. I deserve more from life. You deserve more from life, my friend. And you deserve to have that place of compassion for you, for what you've been through, but also for people around you. People you meet, people you interact with. Because if the other statistic is also true, as we know that it is, because another statistic we know from science is that 7 out of 10 people are survivors of trauma. 7 out of 10 people, proven by so many studies around the world. 7 out of 10, I mean, one of them is Australian Bureau of Statistics, but so many studies around the world tell us that somewhere between 7 and 8 people out of 10 experience at least one major traumatic event in their lives. So this isn't just you and me, my friend. It's the world. The world has been through this craziness. The world has been through trauma and strife and suffering. And so the way people around us react, if they are being sometimes unfair, if they're sometimes angry or react in a way that we don't like, that's also an opportunity to look at them from a place of compassion. The other day I was driving to a new place, and I was just like looking at things on my map, and so I was going a little slower than usual, and I noticed that there was someone behind me, and they were driving really close to my car, right? And all of a sudden, this person like just drove around me, and they drove up, and they just started screaming at me, and just like swearing and saying these awful things, and then they just like drove away. And I think on another day, I probably would have screamed something back or got really, really upset and whatever. But on that day, I was able to kind of think like, maybe this, I don't know what this person has been through that made them so on edge, that someone just going a tiny bit slower on the road that made them so worked up and so angry. They must have gone through something awful. And given that compassion in that moment, like that person didn't care. I didn't change their life in any way. I didn't affect them. They didn't stop going, go, oh, Joe, how nice, But you know what? I felt better. I felt better about me because I was like, listen, this person, they've been through things like I have. And I was able to just give them a moment of compassion and just move on with my life without feeling angry, upset, without having been dragged into whatever emotion was driving and consuming them. And I think that compassion is so vital, my friend. It's so vital for how we are with each other. And that's why with C3T, I really believe that compassion is at its absolute core of something we can practice. Something that doesn't naturally come to us. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't just naturally happen. It's something we have to summon. Something we have to summon at moments that matter. At moments when we feel upset. At moments when we feel down on ourselves. The moments when we are, pulled into somebody else's rage or frustration or emotion. We can summon that compassion towards yourself, towards people around you, And that helps us to lead a better life. That acknowledges what you've been through and acknowledges the load and the burden that other people carry as well. That impacts all of the areas of their life and their health as well. Here's another thing that in all my studies of traumatic stress with Bessel van der Kolk and in speaking with so many experts in mental health and studying psychodrama and studying all sorts of different modalities, and also from my own experience, that being expressive, sharing your true voice, which is what I believe creativity really is. It's expressing your true self. Being creative is a pathway towards understanding your own truth and releasing or letting go of stress, of frustration, of grief, of anger. It doesn't happen instantaneously. But if we put in our life ways that allow you to feel like you're expressing your true self, if you find ways to feel like you're sharing your truth, whether that's through journaling each day, whether that's through doing renovations inside the house, whether you do it through writing, whether you do it through acting, music, architecture, performance. If you find something that works for you, and it doesn't have to be something that other people see or acknowledge, but you find a way to share your truth, you are finding a release, a channel to let go of things. And the process that I believe that it happens by is because you gain a greater understanding, whether you do it on purpose, because you try to dig deep into your own experience, or you're just going to do it unconsciously, where you find ways for parts of you that may have been buried deep within, that may have been not given a voice, that may not have been heard or understood, that might feel on the margins, that might feel excluded, that might feel beaten down or shut down. If you give them a chance to rise up, if you give them a chance to share their truth, because these are all the parts of us that we don't often give a voice to. I feel that the part of me that started writing the play about trauma, about rape and impact of that, has now gone through a place where I feel that part was given a voice. And what's more, when I say a play about rape, it sounds really horrific, but I really feel that now it's gained a touch of hope in there. And I started writing it. And this was brought on by the Russian invasion of Ukraine, because Ukraine is where I'm from, and so this war brought, and the stories of people going through rape and all of these horrific things have brought up my own experience. And I really, I struggled to get it out of me or contain it even, right? I felt like it was just kind of taking over things, right? And so I had to kind of get it out somehow. And I started writing this play. And it was it was coming out in this, I didn't even know what I was writing about. It was something about memories, but it was really vague. And I had all of these ideas. And when I came out with the first draft, I was lucky enough to come across a person who was an expert in storytelling and theater, and I showed them this play, But what's was the most life-changing thing is they were also a survivor of child sexual abuse. And when this person read my play, and we sat down, and she said, have you ever shared your experience with someone? I said, I didn't. And she told me her story. And hearing that, it kind of was almost like opened me up and given me permission to share mine. And I felt this torrent of all of these just dark things that have been just pent up inside of me. I had them just kind of ooze out from all these pores just coming out of me. And she said, Joe, we need to hear your voice. You're a survivor. We need to hear your story. And you know what? That just shook me up so much. And it's just given me also a voice to a part of me that was just buried within, because I wanted to believe that I was over it, and I realized that I wasn't, and I needed to let that part come out and live and feel like it's a part of me that belongs. And through creativity, through writing, through expressing that truth, it's made me feel whole. Made me feel so much more whole, because I've given that part a voice. And sometimes I've given it in the sense of, not literally describing what happened, but just sometimes expressing some thoughts, feelings through story, through images that made me feel like a truth of my experience is really coming out. And I felt such a release, like this weight's been lifted on my shoulders. And what is more true to my experience, this weight is being lifted off of my shoulders. Because I keep on sharing this, I keep on writing this play, and now I'm changing things around, and it's basically the story is completely different, but I'm still sharing my core truth of my experience. And what I believe is also true, that because we all go through this, that when you share your truth, your authentic truth, your experience, your struggles, your hopes, your desires, when you go and you share it at a more profound level within yourself, and that we do that with practice, through whatever medium you choose, whether that's through renovating your house, whether that's through writing your autobiography, whether that's volunteering somewhere in your community, whatever that might be, when you find a way to do it in a way that is really feels true and authentic to you at a deeper level, every single time you find a way to connect with other people's humanity, with their stories. You find a way to speak to their parts that may be struggling with the impact of the past, that may have been feeling ashamed of themselves, that may have been hidden from themselves and from others, and now they, in some ways, are coming out. Even if your experience is totally different, if their struggles have nothing to do with yours, the fact that you are sharing your true self, the fact that you're expressing something that is true and meaningful to you becomes true and meaningful for them, because they can see that reflected in some way, at some level, that comes true to them. The third thing is connectedness. And sometimes that, feeling connected is vital from perspective of feeling understood. And sometimes that is about, of course, seeking people who really understand you, who get you, who deeply emphasize with your experience, with your struggles, with your hurts, with your hopes, with what you want from the world, with your journey as you're trying to work all of these things out. But sometimes it's also about finding a deeper level of connection with people in your life who are already there. And maybe those are friendships or relationships with people who maybe you had a little bit of distance, or maybe just you didn't have as great of a level of connection as you would have hoped to have. Like for me, my own journey towards healing has also brought up like this friendship that I have with one of the probably the longest friendship I have in my life, with a great friend of mine, and we've been friends since we were teenagers. So we've been friends for this is scary, for like 30 years now, right? Which is insane when I think about it, right? But one thing I realized is like I didn't really talk about my dreams and my hopes with him. Like we just kind of talked about everyday life, and I felt like something was missing from our conversations. And we were talking about my podcast, and he said, well, it's great to have a hobby like that because it gives meaning to you and you enjoy it. I said, what, it's really more than a hobby. I feel it's like it's my calling. It's what I'm kind of put on this earth to do. It's just like it drives me on. It gives like just so much to my life. And I never really spoke to him at a really depth of something that is truly meaningful to me, like at that level. Because I thought, well, maybe he can't relate to it. Maybe it's like a different thing. But what I realized that, I believe he really understood where I'm coming from, and that greater sense of understanding and even compassion for who I am and where I want to go to. But also, it gave me a greater sense of connection, of greater sense of connectedness, because I was now sharing a deeper level of my truth, just in an everyday catch up. Whereas other times we would have maybe talked about, more surface level things. I think we were able to go deeper. And I really enjoyed it so much more. And I think that he did as well. So I think connectedness is oftentimes is uncovering how we can go deeper with people that we care for in our lives. I think that can speak to healing so much, because when we feel more connected with people around us, people that we care about, people that are meaningful to us, then that raises a level of belonging. That's why I'm starting this community, Trust Plus One. I'm starting a community and which will become, my vision is to become an organization that, a movement that sweeps across the world for people who are impacted by trauma, for us to come together and support each other in giving our best, in growing into the life that we want, and supporting each other in healing from trauma and living happier, more fulfilled lives. I really believe that. And the reason why that is, I think, is so that we can experience so much a greater level of connectedness with each other. Because when we experience the greater connectedness with each other, we experience a greater connection to ourselves. I think that's really meaningful to the way that we live and move forward, and the way that we deal with that with the allostatic load, that tremendous load that we have on our health through stress and trauma. The last thing I want to share with you on what I believe the 4 things that really help us to heal from trauma is therapy. I really believe that one huge thing that is incredibly transformative in how we live our lives today in healing from trauma is good therapy. Maybe you know someone, or maybe you've experienced yourself what support looks like when it's not right for you. Whether that's from a doctor, counselor, mental health practitioner. Sometimes you come across people and they're not really best equipped to support you at that point in time. For me, it was, in my 20s when I was going through my breakup, my first big relationship. It was 5.5 years. I felt so lost, alone. I felt like I would never be able to meet anyone else. I wouldn't be able to have sex, and I wasn't able to, because I really struggled to have sex in that my first relationship, because it took me such a long time to get comfortable with that person. I didn't even understand this whole thing of the impact of going to rape. I had no idea what to do with it. I thought it's just something that you kind of have to struggle through and put up with. I didn't realize that there was all of these therapies, right, that are specifically to do with healing from trauma. And so I just, at one point, I guess I was desperate, and I was at a really awful point of my life, in the sense that my panic attacks went through the roof. I was drinking every single day. I was just having all of these crazy, deep, dark thoughts. And I ended up going to our family doctor, and ended up telling him about some of these things. Well, you're going to listen to me. And he wrote down something on a piece of paper, and he kind of handed it to me. And he said, this should help. And I looked at it, and I realized that this was a prescription for antidepressants. And when I saw that, I don't know, just something happened. And I remember this, as I was walking out of his office, I had that prescription in my hand, and as I was walking out, I immediately put it in the bin. Immediately. Because I knew that it wasn't right for me. Because I knew that I wasn't hurt. This wasn't what I was looking for. By the way, I have nothing against antidepressants, or I'm just saying that I didn't feel like I was hurt, and I didn't feel like this would be addressing my deep needs somehow. This person just dismissed me, and I don't think it was because they were mean or even incompetent. It's just that they were not equipped to deal with trauma. They were not equipped to kind of forward me on to someone who may be able to help. And maybe this was also a different time when, there was even less awareness of trauma and how we can deal with it, So if you've had that sort of experience, I really feel for you, my friend, because I know that it's tough. And it feels like people don't get you, and it just feels wrong. And that's why I want to support you, and I want to encourage you to seek good therapy. If you want to find out about good therapies, I want to share with you a free resource that I just put together. It's called Healing Space Guide. It's called Healing Space Melbourne, but it's got resources and overview of major therapeutic modalities that support healing from trauma, that have interviews, that have quotes from practitioners. Very simple layout. There's 1 or 2 pages for each of the 7 therapeutic modalities, where to find practitioners in Australia, who it's for. Like, you'll be able to have an understanding whether one thing is more suited for you than something else, and you'll be able to be able to piece it all together in really almost no time, because the whole thing is like, 20 odd pages, right? And you'll just be able to have it's just laid out and broken out in a way that will be really easy for you to understand the therapeutic modalities that are written from perspective of survivor, of me, of interviewing these experts and researching and studying these modalities and presenting just like kind of core elements that you need to know to decide whether this is something that is going to be right for you. And so I would urge you to check it out. I think it can really serve you. It's up on my website for free. If you go to powertobehappy.com, and if you click on the Healing Space guide somewhere at the top, you can grab that free guide for yourself and check out the different therapeutic modalities that might really help you. I know these are things that have been evidence-based, so this isn't some sort of crazy, magic crystals or something. This is scientific methods that have been proven to help people heal from trauma. I really believe, my friend, that these are the core things that will support you. C3T. This is the framework I really believe that can help you to take the next big step on your healing. C3T. Finding a greater sense of compassion for yourself and people around you. And part of it is speaking to yourself with more kindness and understanding and a greater sense of compassion for who you are, where you've been, and where you're going. Finding ways to express your true self through creativity, through whatever makes you feel creative, whatever makes you feel come alive, whatever helps you express something that's pent up inside of you and let it come out. Because that is the path to a greater understanding, a greater depth of experience, and a greater way to feel more whole. Then connectedness is allowing yourself to talk about and connect with people in your life, or making new friends and new relationship, and talking about things that truly matter to you today. Not holding back, not thinking how are people going to look at it, but sharing things that are important to you. Because it's through sharing our deeper truths that we get to experience a greater level of understanding, of compassion for each other, or finding that shared experience, shared human experience that binds us all. I would encourage you to seek more of that, my friend, because it's made such a dramatic impact on my life. And of course, therapy. I know good therapy for me, finding that in these last 2 years of my life has brought more calm, made me feel more content, has allowed me a greater sense of freedom into how I feel. It's allowed me to put some of the challenging memories aside. It's allowed me to find a greater compassion for myself at key points of my life, and made me feel a happier person who is much more engaged in each present moment of my life and enjoy the life that I have at an even greater level, and how I am with my family, what I'm doing with my work, the things that I aspire to do, my hopes and dreams. Because here's the crazy thing, my friend. Here's the crazy thing, is in our life, when we've been touched by trauma, what we learned ways to survive. We learned ways to kind of get by. We learned how, to be functioning in the society in the way that people maybe don't notice or don't realize the impact of these struggles. That maybe we ourselves don't get to look after our own health, even though there is scientifically proven impact on pretty much all systems within our body, on our mental health. We can measure this. We know what that is, the impact of trauma, the impact of chronic stress. And so we learn to cope, we learn to survive. And that's awesome. That's so vital, right? Because I'm so grateful for that. We develop all of these coping mechanisms. That's great. What's missing, though, is what requires us to live a greater life. A life where we step into making a greater impact in whatever way is meaningful for you. Into seeing yourself as fulfilling and being able to dream bigger. On having dreams and ambitions and hopes and stepping into them and making progress in life in a way that really feels like a breakthrough, just a breakthrough, where we can take ourselves from feeling stuck in the muck and pulling ourselves forward towards the life that we truly want. And we need new skills and new capabilities for that. And they're different to survival. Survival is vital and we can build all those skills up. That's great. But what is needed is the capabilities for thriving and leading a greater life. That's what I focus on in my coaching program. That's why I developed this coaching program. And that's what I do to help trauma survivors to step forward and learn these capabilities and skills that will help you to feel a greater sense of just presence in your life. Being able to live in the moment. Be able to do it with joy, with compassion, to express your true creative self. Being able to feel so much more confident in having dreams, in pursuing those dreams, in keeping your hopes up, in going beyond yourself to find where is it that you truly belong, where you can feel like you are actually making a difference to other people, but also to yourself in how you feel life. If you want to find out more about my coaching program that's called Clarity First, go to my website at powertobehappy.com and click on Clarity First. You can sign up for a free session to see if it's a right fit for you. Thank you for being here, my friend. Speak soon.